This episode, we're going to look at the idea of voice and choice in your classroom. It's often important for students to have some ideas on what they want to do for creating products, and that helps to encourage engagement in your own classrooms. So in this particular episode, we're going to explore digital tools and tips and tricks to help make these big ideas and menus and layered curriculum work for your classroom. Digital tools only help to make this even better. So before you get started, check out the quick start guide that is in the description to see some of the examples that you'll see during the video. And also look at some of things I've created in the past here before we get into some of the nitty gritty, so you can see if this is right for you and your classroom. Before we go too far about voice and choice, let's differentiate between the differences between menus and layered curriculum. Both these are really helpful in helping students to create their very own products and follow their passions for learning and interest in certain topics. Menus usually are a listing of summative assessments that help to understand what students have learned after completing a unit or a particular lesson. These are equivalent to maybe tests and quizzes in terms of the weight they would have on a grade. Whereas layered curriculum is actually a whole learning pedagogy where many lessons are developed by a teacher for direct instruction that lasts only a short period of time. And students choose learning activities as well as assessments through some structured activities that will help gauge their understanding of the content. So I use both of these to help students make choices on activities and assignments that they might want to create or complete. Let's take a look at an example menu. On the screen here is an example tic-tac-toe assessment menu that I used in my biology classes when the students were learning about cellular structures. Now, the idea of tic-tac-toe is just like the game that you used to play when you were a kid. You can complete a series of assessments either in a row, a column, or diagonally. So students have a pathway in which they want to complete their work. Here we can see that in the center is a design space. Unlike maybe in bingo, that would be the free space, this is actually an area where students can create their very own product using their own imagination and their skill set and their particular interests that might be driving towards something that they really want to create as part of this menu. But here, these are all summative assignments or assessments that students are going to show you what they've learned at the conclusion of lessons and maybe even at the conclusion of an entire unit. For the point value, each of these were given a rubric, and they all had the same amount of points that the students could earn for each of these. In creating the columns and the rows, I was thinking about the various topics the students had to learn throughout the course of this particular unit. So whenever the students chose a path through here, I wanted to make sure that they were assessed on all of the learning objectives. So that's kind of the challenge here. It's how do you create a menu and a structure for students to follow that they get assessed on all the various particular topics that they encounter during the course of a unit. So let's look at another example. This is another biology menu, and it was on cellular chemistry, so the chemical reactions that happen inside cells to maintain homeostasis. But students had a variety of tasks they can do. Now this one was sort of a hybrid model, right? So the students were in class and they were online. So you have some choices here of things to do in class or at a distance. Now this is called a 2-5-8. So there's activities that are worth 2 points, activities that are worth 5 points, and those activities that are worth 8. So depending on the skill set and the amount of things that are being evaluated, it would impact the amount of points that the students earned for completing that particular assessment. So students had to get up to a total of 12 points, 12 points maximum for each of the levels, and they can complete them in any particular order as long as they got the 12 points or more. They got 100% in that category. So in the gradebook, I would just have one thing listed there. In this case, it's the plasma membrane, one of the structures inside the cell that's really important. Students did their activities and they got up to 12 points, then they got 100%. And you can see how I broke this down. each of the lesson segments within that unit, students' assessment on that, they got a chance to do a 2, 5, 8. And they had to select how many assignments they wanted to do in order to reach that maximum of 12 points. Here's a modified menu assignment where I had the students choose the assessments they wanted to do. So after each lesson, so like here's 9-1 Darwin's important work, that would have been a mini lesson I would have done. And the students had 3 choices that they can use to show me what they've learned from that lesson. Each one's worth 20 points. Embedded in this one is also lab activities that all the students had to do. And of course, these are all linked to the internet, so students can do this all at a distance, and they had access to these assignments. So that's another example of a menu. Now let's compare that to a layered curriculum. Layered curriculum is an idea that was created by an author named Dr. Kathleen Nunley, and she devised this way of having various layers. It's sort of along the lines of depth of knowledge and assessing for mastery that you would see in a classroom. And basically it helps students guide through the learning process, and they have much more choice. So I'll show you what a layered curriculum looks like. So here's the curriculum document that I would give students. Whenever I create a layered curriculum, I always provide them detailed information so that they can share it with their parents as well. Things like how they get scored, due dates, things like that are very important to have all in one place so students have that information. So basically, with the layered curriculum, the way that it was designed by Kathleen Nunley, there's basically 3 levels. There's layer C, that's basic knowledge. There's layer B, that's advanced practice. And there's the assessment of student learning, a summative assessment, and it's layer A. And students work at these. They have their choice of what assignments they want to complete. So this really works well if you have a whole bunch of activities that students could do in a particular unit. In this case, I'm doing cell structures, which there's a lot of activities that you can do with cell structures. So having students going through and creating and developing various things for this particular lesson, a set of lessons, it's wide open, and there's a lot of detailed information on the internet. So there's a lot of great activities you can do with that. That's what you want to look for a layered curriculum. Something that's wide open. There's a lot of variability that you can have students work with. So there's a maximum level of points, as you can see here. My level C here has a maximum of 25 points. The B level is 35, and then the summative assessments, the layer A, maximum of 40 points. So students get up to 100 points. They get the percentage added onto the grade book after they complete this. This is a unit called Beyond Our World. It was from my Earth and Space Science class. Again, our layers are there. We have the C, B, and A, and information for the students, and then links that link up to the various tasks for the students to do. They have their choice. Some of these are very variable. The students get the instructions in the link, and it gives them the details that they need. But this is another example of a layered curriculum. All right, now that you've seen some examples, let's get into some of the details on why using digital tools really makes voice and choice such an amazing thing. First one, all the resources are found in one place. So let me give you some examples of how this can work for you. This is my layered curriculum on Beyond Our World from Earth Space Science again. And this is the document students get. And the reason why I say these are the resources all in one place is when you click on these links, these are documents that are already in my Google Drive, shared with all the students. They have access to them, and they can create a copy. Most of them are instructions and grading rubrics for them. So as they go through and they want to learn, or show what they've learned, these are available to them, and they can go through and they can find out if that's an activity that they're interested in. They can chart their own path forward. Also, in terms of having all resources in one place, by creating some of these in Google Slides, you actually can have a place for students to turn in their work. So here is the tic-tac-toe assessments menus that students can do. So some of these things the students have to turn work back into you and for you to grade. Well, like a timeline of cell discoveries, they have a link here to the instructions and the scoring rubric that you would use to score that. Well, students can create this in all kinds of various ways. They can create their own Google Slides and then take a screen capture and put it inside this document for you to grade. They go to a website. They have timeline creators online. They can create their own timeline. And I actually put in here a place for them to insert their work, right? And tell me what they created, and I can put the rubrics here and help score them. They can also just connect it right to Google Classroom. So if you're a Google Apps for Education teacher, they can attach their work as a submission and turn it in. And I'll show you that in a second here, how you can do that. So when I created the tic-tac-toe assessment menu, I added it to Google Classroom and made it as an assignment for students, but I also made sure a copy was made for each individual student. So when I went through and I was grading them, I was able to actually keep score, and they can refer back to this and see what their progress was. So you can see here I left private comments as I graded things, letting them know what I did. And students were able to upload their work as they were completing it. So this particular student had created a timeline. They get to see what her timeline was. It's not loading right now. But if we load it here, you can see what my comments were, and I uploaded the rubric right here to it, so I can give this particular student a grade. So this is all done in one place. Nice thing about Google Classroom is you can do this for multiple assignments. As soon as the student turns in one assignment and it's graded, they can resubmit the next assignment, and it's all in one place. Students' grades, their assignments, their ideas, they're all being stored in one place. With these digital tools, we're opening up all kinds of choices for students to create various things that they would want to show you in terms of creating their products. So digital tools really opens up a wide range. So let's look at some examples that my students have come up with. Here's an infographic that a student had made about different types of cells. Students have created videos, and they have created Kahoots. Students have even if they don't have digital skills, some of them do have some artistic skills, so they can go and create comics and then scan it or take a picture with their devices. So there's all kinds of different ways that students can use digital tools in order to do and create their own work for assessments. Along with students using digital tools, the grading isn't the easiest using menus in later curriculum, but because it's the authentic products that students are creating, it's much more interesting to grade. So it may take you a little bit longer to grade these assignments, but you really get to see what the students know. And they're using their interests, so they're actually engaged and wanting to show you what they know about the things that they've learned in class. And one thing that this really offers you is that students can provide a really unique set of things for you to look at to understand what they've learned, but also there's a lot of chance here, if you're giving them something really simple to do, that they're going to copy off each other, because they're going to take the path of least resistance. And if you give them something that's multiple choice or true false, they're going to share it with their friends, and they're not going to necessarily show you what they actually know. So you want to try and avoid things that students can do that would lead them to actually cheating. So one of the things I like to do is give them some written responses. So let me show you a quick example on what that would look like in a menu. So if you take a look here, like here we have the video of Darwin, the Tree of Life. So they'd have to actually go through and view the video, and it gives the students a sort of a prompts that they have to think about while they are working on, and then they're going to have to post their response to a specific place on Google Classroom. But this is much more than just a simple answer or something that would be simply copied by another student. So we keep that in mind. Hopefully you found this interesting in some ways that you might be able to add voice and choice in your own classroom using digital tools. Again, in the description, you'll find the Quick Start Guide with links to the various types of menus and layered curriculums that I've created in the past. So you can use those and springboard to your own activities and think about how you want to set up your classroom to provide choice for students to create their own authentic digital products.